Welcome to On Point. I'm Tim Murphy, and joining me today are my friends Lene and Joni. Hi, welcome to On Point.
Hello.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us on TV. Is this your first time here, Lene?
Yes, it is.
And you too, Joni?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you for your first appearance on TV. Now, interesting segment today. Something you might not expect from an evening program. We're talking about end of life and preparations for end of life. And you both are working now. Well, you're actually are you the manager?
Yes, I am.
You're the manager of the Arthur Funeral Home, Barton and Kitely Chapel, which is part of Dignity Memorial's, Dignity?
Network.
The network, okay, right. And you are a funeral director
Yes,
by
I am.
trade. And Lene, what by trade you are?
I'm an advanced planner.
An advanced planner,
Yes.
planning in advance. So there's a lot of stuff. Now, my father passed away, gosh, now I'm on the spot. How many years since my dad died? 12 years ago, I believe. And there was a lot of stuff that we didn't know. My parents fortunately went in advance, and they did some funeral planning together, and they chose their urns and all that kind of stuff. But boy, oh boy, even still, when you think you're prepared, there's a lot of stuff you're not ready for when it comes time.
Absolutely. There's over 160 decisions that you're making to get everything in order. There's a lot of decisions, and when you put it in perspective, if you look at, if say you were planning a wedding and all the decisions that need to be made to plan a wedding, we're planning those same types of things, but we have to pull it off in 3 or 4 days. So taking some time and making the decisions in advance makes it a lot easier on your family.
And also because you want to honor the person as best you can, and so oftentimes that'll involve the person letting you know what they want.
Absolutely. You hear so often people say, I wish that my mother would have told me what she wanted, because here we are, there's 5 of us sitting here. We're not always in agreement on everything, and we didn't expect it to happen, and now we have to make decisions right now. And so definitely to have the person's wishes incorporated in, then they know it was about them. So it's really important.
I wanted to ask a little bit about how you got involved in this profession in the first place. When Lene, I know that I first met you, you were working at Canadian Tire, and you were always involved in the community and everything you did. You were always very community-minded, and I know that's still true in your work at Arthur. But so Joni, I don't know that much about your history and how you came to the career as a funeral director.
Well, I always tell people it was a fluke. I was in high school, so I was boarding with the people who owned the funeral home, but I was working at a travel agency as a co-op program, and he kept offering me the job at the funeral home, and I said, you're crazy, I'm not working at a funeral home. And then one day he got the best of me, and I decided to travel in a different direction, and that was the end of the story. He convinced me to go away to school.
Who was that then?
Bob Linklater, who owned the funeral home a number of years ago, so that was a little over 30 years ago.
Wow. So wait, out of high school?
Yes.
Is that unusual, or do people? I mean, is it you made the decision later in life?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people with the co-op programs, they do their little testing and whatnot. So if they're looking for something a little unique, sometimes teachers now are encouraging to go and get a little bit of a experience at a funeral home.
Right.
So yeah, it's not. We do probably 2 or 3 co-op programs a year. Yeah.
Where do you go to school to be a funeral director?
Humber College in Toronto, and there's College Boreal in Sudbury. Yeah, which is about 23 years old, the one in Sudbury. But in Ontario, those are the only 2 schools.
That's it? Ooh, is it hard to get into those courses?
It can be. Yeah.
What kind of a background do you study? I mean, what kind of course? Do you take science courses and stuff like that? Or? I know nothing about it.
No idea. Yeah, you don't have to really have any prerequisites. You can get exempt from courses like any college course.
Yeah.
But in school, you learn embalming, lab, and theory. You take moral and ethical issues in health and anatomy and physiology and. Yeah, so it's quite an interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then are there different branches you can go into as far as work in the field?
Well, our licenses have changed.
Yeah,
years ago it used to be just one license. You had to have a funeral director license in order to do any embalming or any funeral arranging. Now they have some different licenses, which Lene falls under a different category.
What's your
because-
license?
I have an advanced planning license.
Okay. How did you get that?
So I also, well, I started working at the funeral home for a couple of years, then I went to school via online through Humber.
Okay.
And I took a bunch of the courses, the sociology, and there was religion, there was advanced planning, there was a few of the courses that Joni had already spoken about as well. I did everything online, and I did a year internship and a year of courses, and graduated and got my advanced planning license.
It's funny because I know you so well, but we've never had this conversation.
No, never.
And where did that come in your life, where you were at Canadian Tire and then started to change direction? How did that happen? Was that?
Well, I was working at Canadian Tire, had a few health issues, so I was off for a little bit, and was offered a few jobs while I was off, one of them being the funeral home. And when that had happened, my nephew sadly passed away at the time, and just watching what my brother and sister-in-law went through helped me make the decision that if I could make it easier for any family to go through the whole process, that this is where I needed to be. So
I love that.
thank you.
Now we're going to take a commercial.
Absolutely.
And we're going to come back and start talking about some of the things that people don't think about. And there's a great thing you have here, 10 things everyone should know about a funeral or memorial service. And if you're wondering why I have a duck in front of us here, Bruce, I don't know if you want to get this duck on your camera. This duck is here with a little cap and gown, because we're going to get your ducks in a row and we're going to get you educated. All right? So that's what's happening with the duck. Get your ducks in a row, because you don't want to leave your family scrambling and not knowing what to do after you've passed. So we'll be right back after this. More with ONNpoint on TV. See you in a minute. Thanks for sticking around on Point. I'm Tim Murphy, joined by Lene and Joni from Arthur Funeral Home, Barton and Kitely Chapel. And this is the book that you've given me. Isn't it time to have the conversation? You know, it's interesting. There are certain conversations we have in our lives with family members. We talk about, with our teenagers, about, you know, sex. And we talk about marriage and all that kind of stuff to our kids. We talk about education and different conversations we have. And this is a conversation about preparing advanced planning.
Absolutely. So it's like you said, a lot of people aren't really sure how to broach that conversation. And I had somebody actually approach me last week saying, you know, I want to talk to my parents about pre-planning because I don't want to do it. If anything happens to them, I want to know what they want, but I don't know how to have that conversation and open up the dialogue.
You don't want to say, Mom, Dad, when are you planning on dying? Because I want to know. I'm making plans.
That's right. So a few people that I've spoke to, I said, well, lead by example. Tell them that you're going to go in and have the conversation about yourself. And then when you're having the conversation, you're opening up that dialogue. And, you know, I never really thought about it before. What are your wishes? Did you want to be cremated? Did you want earth burial? You know, so starting to go through some of the process and make some of the decisions. But by taking the time and bringing them in, a lot of people think it's really simple. That, oh yeah, no, I just want to be cremated and, you know, I've got a plot already, it's done. Well, there's a lot more decisions to be made than that. So by coming in, we start to break it down and answer all the questions, because at the time you're making over 160 decisions and it can be very overwhelming. Mm-hmm.
And so even as simple as, which urn do you want?
Absolutely.
You know, what style? And my parents, as I told you, they pre-planned. And my father has a beautiful urn. My father was an avid reader, and his urn looks like books. Mm-hmm. And you would never even know that they weren't books on a shelf. I mean, it's a beautiful, but you turn it and the plaque is on the front. It's a beautiful memorial to him, and he's right there. And you know what's really interesting? I didn't anticipate the amount of comfort that I personally get with the urn when the urn is around. Like before I would have thought, oh, I don't know about the urn thing, but when it's there and it's tactile and it's just it's like a symbol of him being there. And then actually to think that his ashes are in there, it's pretty cool actually, and it provides comfort in it. It might sound weird, but that for me is exactly how I feel about having my dad present like that in our home, now in my mother's nursing home, but still. So what other options are there besides cremation and earth burial? Are there any other options? I mean, that's it, right? No, because I hear that there's something else besides cremation that's an immersion process that is more environment. They're talking about the environment now and saying when you do bury a body, that's like 800,000 something of landfill of
Right.
chemicals and stuff going into the ground, and that they're looking at other options now where you actually immerse a body and it's, yeah, have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Recently, it's come to light. It hasn't, of course, in all different areas, there's different laws and a lot of red tape involved, and
Right.
they want to make sure. But as our society becomes a little bit more eco-friendly, a little bit more cost-effective, people
Right.
want to know what different options are available. And I mean, if you asked anyone on the street if they want to be buried or cremated, most people say neither.
Really?
Because they just don't want it to happen.
They don't want
right?
to face it.
Don't want to think about it, don't want to talk about it. So sometimes as other options become available, I think what we've learned over the years in doing it is there's something for everyone, or people feel more comfortable with different things. So if you talk to someone who adamantly wants to be buried, they want nothing to do with cremation. So it's nice to have those options available so that people have a comfort level with whatever they are
It was
planning.
interesting, Lene, hearing about the subject matter you studied, that religion, and that never really occurred to me, but that's got to be a huge part of the work that you do, talking with families about what their faith allows or suggests or whatever, you know what I mean?
Their culture, their faith, everything, is, you know, depends on what they're used to. So, you know, it was very typical for, you know, certain families, all they ever do is burial, and it has to be very traditional with an open casket, and you're going to go to the church and whatnot. But some of those traditions are transforming now as the generations progress through. So
I see more and more people also opting for the service actually at the funeral home, in the chapel. As opposed to going for a church service on another day or separately, whatever. Do you find that that is more of a trend now?
Probably a little bit more because, again, the next generation doesn't always have that connection that maybe their parents did.
Right, I get
But it depends, again, on where they're situated and the different things that they're involved in. And we're happy to do it wherever they want it. And you hear that term now, celebration of life,
Yes.
which can be anywhere. It can be in a backyard, it can be at a different venue, it can be at the funeral home, set up in a manner that you truly are just celebrating that person's life.
Right.
So it doesn't matter necessarily where, it's wherever they're comfortable.
All right, we have to take a commercial break, and we still didn't get to the 10 things everyone should know, but I think we're starting to pick them off a little bit at a
Yes,
time.
we
So
are.
we're going to get back to that, another commercial break coming up, and we'll be more on point with Tim Murphy right after this message. Transportation and Relocation Protection Plan. You got me on this one because you told me a story how much, if I were vacationing in Italy, for instance, and I had a heart attack and I happened to die and I had to be brought home, what am I looking at for an expense?
So $23,500 to get you back from Italy is approximately the fee that it would cost to get you back. So whether you're traveling on vacation, whether you're traveling for pleasure, business, or medical reasons, a lot of people are air ambulanced out or have medical appointments out of town, it's costly to get you back if something were to happen to you. So, you know, $18,000 from Cuba I've seen. When you're looking at Jamaica, all these vacations that you go on. Fascinating for me, I spoke to a captain of a ship that said every time the ship goes out, they leave a body at the next port. So family's got to get you back from there, and that's a huge stat because I've been on a few cruises and realized that, yeah, they hold you back from getting off at port and they're removing a body, and I found that every single time that's a huge statistic.
So now you get, it's like an insurance plan?
Absolutely. So you can purchase it if you're a snowbird or whatever your reasons for travel and you want to come in, you can purchase it independently, or you can purchase it in conjunction with your pre-planning, and you can make monthly payments on it if you purchase it in conjunction with pre-planning. If you purchase it outright, it's $495, and you purchase it one time, you're covered for life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, as far as tying it into pre-planning goes, what about financing for this kind of thing? What options are available for people? Because it can be quite costly, obviously.
And what we've realized over the years is that people come in and that's always top of mind, and especially if they haven't pre-planned or or thought about things in advance. They come in, all of a sudden they find out that they have a $5,000 or a $10,000 bill that they didn't expect. And it can be quite shocking, and all of a sudden, where are we going to get the funds from? And I know there's bank accounts and insurance policies, but what do we do?
Right.
And people get in a bit of a panic. And what's nice about the pre-planning is you can come in and at least get an idea of costs. You don't have to pay for it, but you can get an idea of what the costs are currently. And if you do wish to prepay for it, then we can say, based on your age and the length of time you might want to make payments, then we can break those payments down for you, so that, especially for the younger generation, it's much more affordable than it ever used to be, because they can basically pay it automatically out of their paychecks,
right.
and it's much more affordable, and it's insurable.
And you're seeing people as young as 21 years of age coming in now and pre-planning. That's smart,
they've had
though.
to deal with a parent's death, and they just don't want to put their own family through it, and they're saying, hey, right now in my life is the time I can manage this and make it a lot easier on those. And if I don't die for another 70 years, I know I'm covered regardless.
Right. And then you have after planning.
Yes,
Is that
with
what you call it?
aftercare.
Aftercare.
Yeah, so with the aftercare, after a death has occurred, we meet with the family and help to finalize Canada pension paperwork, old age notifications. We cancel the social insurance card, we cancel the health card, we notify both of the credit bureaus, we send a notification to Canada Revenue, and give them some direction as to what they need to take care of and guidance through. Just because services are over, we don't leave them. At the end of that, we continue to follow up and make sure that they're doing okay. We provide them with the Compassion Helpline telephone number. So we have certified counselors 24 hours a day, 365 days a year that are available to the family, and we just make sure that they're doing okay with what they need.
That is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely. To know this, to know that I can just go in and see Lene and sit down and say, this is what I want, this is what I need to know, and then to find out that after I'm gone, that you'll sit down with people that I leave behind, pardon me, and make sure that they're not any more stressed out than they need to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, because that's, you're not even, to think, planning a funeral is one thing, then the aftercare is another huge part of it that people
Yes.
don't even realize. When you're in that state, are you going to be clear-headed enough? And do you realize these are all, canceling all those things and making all those, and you do all that stuff?
Absolutely.
I think it's fantastic. So, how do we find out more? I guess we can see you or Kirsty.
Yes.
It's Kirsty's last name is Laidlaw.
Laidlaw.
Kirsty Laidlaw, Lene Fragamini, in case you didn't know, and Joni Cook, right?
Yes.
I just thought I never said your last names in this whole segment. But Lene, they would contact you. They can come in and visit you. They can call, make an appointment.
Absolutely.
And then you have a website too. But you said you really would rather talk to somebody.
I
in
like to
person.
talk to people in person.
You're so personable.
I love it.
So they can get a hold of you at Arthur Funeral Home, Barton and Kitely Chapel. The website, in case they want to go, www.arthurfuneralhome.com. And phone number 705-759-2522, and ask for Lene or Kirsty, and they're going to invite you in to sit down and talk you through the whole process, make an appointment, and make you realize that saying goodbye doesn't always have to be a tragedy, and it doesn't have to be a traumatic. It can really be a celebration.
Absolutely.
Right? Any final words from you two?
We appreciate you allowing us to come in and educate people, because that's the biggest thing for people, is picking up the phone to ask the questions that they really want to know.
You allowed us to help open up the dialogue and start the conversation, so that's really important.
And you're always welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for joining us for another episode of On Point. I'm Tim Murphy, and this has been On TV. We'll see you the next time. Thanks again to Lene and Joni for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, see you again, ladies.
Thank you.